If someone had told me years ago that my wife would betray me in the most unthinkable way, I would have laughed. Diana and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. To everyone around us, we were the picture-perfect couple, successful, social, and in sync, but now, I realized I had spent years living a lie. Looking back, the signs were there. Small, but there. Diana had never been overly affectionate, not in the way most wives were. She was beautiful, confident, and always knew how to play the role of the perfect wife in public. But behind closed doors, something was always missing. She was distant in ways I couldn't explain. Our sex life was never exciting, and over the last year, it had all but disappeared. She blamed work stress, headaches, needing space, every excuse under the sun, but she always had time for my stepmother, Valerie. At first, I didn't think much of it. Valerie had been married to my father for almost a decade, and though we weren't particularly close, she was still family. She and Diana got along well, often meeting for coffee, going shopping together, or attending events that I thought it was harmless, but what I didn't know was that while I was busy working, trying to keep our marriage together, my wife was doing something far worse than I ever imagined. She wasn't just cheating on me, she was cheating on me with my stepmother. And I was about to find out the truth in the worst possible way. That I used to think I was a reasonable man. The kind of husband who didn't jump to conclusions, who gave his wife the benefit of the doubt, but doubt had been creeping in for months. Diana's behavior had changed in ways I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just distance anymore, it was secrecy. She started guarding her phone like it held state secrets. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd tilt the screen away or lock it immediately. She started taking calls in the other room, her voice hushed, like whatever she was saying wasn't meant for my ears. That I told myself it was just stress. That maybe she was planning a surprise for me or needed space. Then there was Valerie. Diana had always liked her, but suddenly, it was like they were inseparable. That I'd come home from work to find them laughing in the kitchen, sipping wine like giddy teenagers. If I walked in, they'd fall silent for a second before forcing conversation. If I asked what they were up to, Diana would roll her eyes and say, "Oh, don't be jealous, Harry. Valerie and I just get along really well." And like a fool, I believed her. It wasn't until one particular weekend that things took a sharp turn. Diana had told me she was going on a girls' retreat at a luxury spa with Valerie. "We need some time to unwind," she had said, pecking my cheek with that fake little smile she always used when she was trying to smooth something over. "Don't wait up." I had no reason to question it. After all, it was Valerie, my father's wife. But something didn't sit right with me. So for the first time, I did something I had never done before. I checked our shared credit card. I expected to see charges from a fancy resort or high-end restaurant. Instead, what I saw made my stomach drop. The charges weren't from a spa. They were from a boutique hotel across town. Not just one night, 2 nights. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering, my fingers trembling as I scrolled. Room service. A bottle of champagne. A couple's massage. It didn't make sense, but then it did. I had been so focused on the possibility that Diana might be cheating with another man that I had ignored something even worse. I grabbed my keys and left the house, my mind racing. I needed to see it for myself. I needed proof. I parked outside the hotel, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. I had no real plan, just a gut-wrenching need to know. I stepped inside, walking straight up to the reception desk. The clerk barely looked up before asking, "Checking in?" "No," my voice came out sharper than I intended. "I need to know if a guest is staying here." "Room 214. The clerk's face remained neutral. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't disclose guest information." I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. "I think my wife is cheating on me in that room." That got his attention. He hesitated, then leaned in slightly. "I can't confirm names, but, if you're looking for someone, I'd check the lounge." The lounge. My chest tightened. I turned and walked in that direction, my pulse pounding with every step, and then I saw them, Diana and Valerie, sitting in a dimly lit booth near the back, cuddled up against each other, not talking. Not just laughing like friends. Valerie's hand was resting on Diana's thigh. Their heads were close together, and then, as if the universe wanted to make things absolutely clear. Diana leaned in and kissed her, not a quick peck. Not a friendly kiss. A slow, deep, intimate kiss. Everything around me seemed to blur. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. All the suspicions. The lies. The secrecy. This was it. This was the truth. My wife wasn't just cheating, she was cheating with my stepmother. I gripped the back of a chair to keep myself steady, my breathing shallow. I should have walked away. I should have left right then and there, but I didn't, because I needed to hear the lies that would come next, and I needed to watch Diana try to squirm her way out of this. I stood there, frozen, watching as my wife and my stepmother kissed in the dim glow of the hotel lounge. It felt like time had stopped. My mind couldn't process it, wouldn't process it. Diana, my wife. Valerie, my father's wife, together. Like lovers, every late-night phone call, every whispered conversation, every unexplained absence, it all made sense now. I felt sick. For a moment, I debated turning around and walking away. Pretending I never saw this. Pretending I didn't know, but know. I wanted answers. I wanted to see Diana's face when she realized she had finally been caught. I stepped forward, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. They didn't see me at first. They were too wrapped up in each other, Valerie's hand tracing slow circles on Diana's thigh, Diana whispering something into her ear that made them both giggle like teenagers sneaking around. Then, Diana looked up, our eyes met. For a second, I saw pure panic. Then, just as quickly, she masked it. Her lips curved into a tight, fake smile. "Harry," she said, her voice light, controlled like she wasn't caught red-handed. Valerie's head snapped up, her face going pale. I crossed my arms, my body tense. "Well, don't stop on my account." I motioned to their table. "Go ahead. Keep whispering. Keep touching. You were having such a good time." Diana let out a breathy laugh, shaking her head. "Harry, don't make a scene." I scoffed. "A scene? I walk into a hotel and find my wife making out with my stepmother, and you don't want me to make a scene?" Valerie looked around nervously, eyes darting toward the entrance as if she was afraid someone else might see, but Diana, she didn't care. Instead, she sat back, crossing her arms like I was the one being unreasonable. "This isn't what it looks like," she said smoothly. I barked out a laugh. "Oh? Then by all means, explain it to me." She hesitated, but only for a second. Then, she tilted her head and smirked. "It's just sex, Harry. It doesn't mean anything." I felt my jaw tighten, my fingers curling into fists. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You've been sneaking around behind my back, lying to my face, and now that you're caught, you expect me to believe this is nothing?" Diana shrugged. "I didn't think you'd understand." Valerie finally spoke, her voice softer. "Harry, please. It's more complicated than that." I turned to her, furious. "Complicated? You're my father's wife." She flinched. "I know." I laughed bitterly. "So what's the excuse? Did you suddenly realize you were in love? Or was this just some cheap thrill for both of you?" Diana rolled her eyes, and that? That set me off, the complete lack of remorse. The way she acted like I was the problem here. "You are unbelievable," I muttered. Diana leaned forward, her tone casual. "Harry, we can be adults about this. We can talk it through." I stared at her, shaking my head in disbelief. Talk it through? She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed, she was just mad that she got caught, and that's when I realized our marriage was dead. Right here, in this hotel lounge, surrounded by strangers. Diana had made her choice, and now, it was my turn. Diana sat there, arms crossed, completely unbothered. Valerie, on the other hand, looked terrified. She kept glancing around, shifting in her seat, like she was afraid someone she knew might see us. Maybe she was worried about what my father would think. Maybe she was finally realizing the gravity of what she had done. But Diana, she was bored. Like this entire confrontation was an inconvenience to her. I clenched my fists, my pulse hammering in my ears. "So this is what it's come to?" I said, my voice low. "You don't even have the decency to pretend to be sorry?" Diana exhaled sharply, leaning back in her chair. What do you want me to say, Harry? I stared at her. How about the truth? She smirked, her fingers tapping against the table. Fine. You want the truth? She tilted her head. I was never in love with you. It felt like a knife to the gut that I sucked in a slow breath, my nails digging into my palms. You're lying. She shrugged. Believe what you want. But if we're being honest, I never should have married you. Valerie shot her a warning look. But Diana wasn't done. She leaned forward, her lips curling into a smirk. You were always so safe, Harry. Predictable. Easy. I thought that was what I wanted. I felt something snap inside me. You mean I treated you with respect? I shot back. I trusted you. I gave you everything. And you threw it away for what? I gestured between her and Valerie. For this? Diana's smirk didn't falter. It's not just about sex, Harry. She lifted her chin. I've always been into women. I stared at her, my chest tight. Then why did you marry me? She rolled her eyes. Because it was easier. Because it made sense. Because I thought maybe I could love you. She shrugged. But I was wrong. The air left my lungs. Every moment we had spent together, the years, the vows, the memories, none of it had ever been real, and the worst part, she didn't even care that I turned to Valerie, my voice ice cold. And you? What's your excuse? She swallowed hard. Harry, I never meant for this to happen. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Really? Because sneaking around with my wife for a year sure seems intentional. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Because what could she say? There was no excuse. No justification. She had betrayed my father. Diana had betrayed me, and now they both had to live with it. Diana let out an exasperated sigh. Look, Harry, let's not be dramatic. I snapped my gaze back to her. Dramatic? She shrugged. People cheat. Marriages fall apart. It happens. No one died. Something inside me boiled over. I slammed my palms on the table, making them both jump. You destroyed our marriage, Diana. My voice was razor sharp. You spent years lying to my face, using me as your cover while you chased something you actually wanted. She stared at me, completely unaffected. I did what I had to do. I shook my head. No. You did what you wanted to do. And now? You get to live with the consequences. I turned away from them, my body tense with rage. I was done. No more explanations. No more conversations. Diana had made her choices, now, so was I. I walked away without another word, and this time, I wasn't looking back. I walked out of the hotel lounge, my breath heavy, my chest tight. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to turn around, to say something to make them feel even a fraction of what I was feeling, but I didn't, because the truth was, Diana didn't care. She had looked me in the eye and admitted it. Our marriage had never been real to her. Every moment I thought we shared, every memory I held on to, meant nothing to her. I stepped into the night air, inhaling deeply. The city buzzed around me, cars passing, distant laughter from people who weren't watching their entire world fall apart. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I already knew who it was. I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Diana. I ignored it. Then another message came in. Diana. Harry, come back. Let's talk about this. I scoffed. Talk? What was left to say? She had spent years lying to me, manipulating me, making me believe we were something we never were. And now, after being caught, now she wanted to talk. I shoved my phone into my pocket and walked toward my car, but before I could open the door, I heard footsteps behind me. Valerie. Her face was pale, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked guilty. Good, Harry, she said softly. Please. Just give me a second. I exhaled, forcing myself to keep calm. Why? She hesitated. Because I need you to know. I never meant to hurt you. I let out a bitter laugh. You've been sleeping with my wife for a year, Valerie. I'd say that was pretty intentional. She flinched. I didn't expect it to go this far. I turned to face her fully. Oh? What was your plan? To sneak around forever? To keep lying to my father while you played house with my wife? Her lip trembled. I don't know. I shook my head, disgusted. Of course you don't. For years, I had respected Valerie. I hadn't always understood her marriage to my father, but I had thought at the very least she was loyal. Now, she was just as bad as Diana. She swallowed hard. Harry, what are you going to do? I stared at her for a long moment, then I gave her the only answer that mattered. I'm going to tell my father. Her breath caught. No, Harry, please. I tilted my head. Why not? He deserves the truth, doesn't he? Her eyes filled with panic. It'll destroy him. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Good. Now you know how it feels. She reached out, but I pulled back before she could touch me. You made your bed, Valerie. My voice was cold. Detached. Now lie in it. Then I got into my car and drove away because I wasn't protecting their secrets anymore. This time, I was going to burn it all down. That I drove straight to my father's house. My hands were tight on the steering wheel, my mind racing. Valerie had begged me not to tell him, but why the hell should I protect her? She hadn't protected me. She had spent the last year sneaking around with my wife. Lying to my father. Lying to me, and now, she was afraid of what would happen when the truth came out. Good, let her be afraid. That I pulled into the driveway, took a deep breath, and walked up to the door. My father, Richard, answered after the first knock. He looked surprised to see me. Harry? What's going on? I stepped inside, my chest tight. We need to talk. His expression shifted. All right. He gestured toward the living room. Sit down. I didn't. That I couldn't. I stood there, arms crossed, trying to find the right words. Trying to figure out how to tell him that his wife, the woman he had trusted, was cheating on him, with my wife. He frowned. Harry, you're scaring me. What's going on? I swallowed hard. Then, I just said it, Dad. Valerie has been cheating on you. His whole body went still. What? I exhaled sharply. For over a year now. His brows furrowed, his mind trying to make sense of it. That doesn't make sense. I scoffed. Trust me, it doesn't make sense to me either. He shook his head, trying to process. With who? And then, I dropped the final bomb, with Diana. His eyes snapped to mine, pure disbelief. Diana, you're Diana? I nodded. That I could see the exact moment it hit him. His face paled. His hands trembled just slightly. He reached for the back of the couch, like he needed to steady himself. No, he muttered. That's not possible. I saw them, I said, my voice sharper now. At a hotel. They weren't just having an affair, Dad. They've been together for over a year. He shook his head. She wouldn't do that. She did, I said firmly. And she's been lying to both of us this whole time. My father staggered back, sitting down heavily on the couch. He ran a hand through his graying hair, his breathing uneven. A part of me hated doing this to him, watching him break, but he deserved to know that he had spent years loving a woman who didn't love him back, just like I had. He exhaled shakily. I gave her everything. I clenched my jaw. So did I. Silence. Then, finally, he looked up at me. What are you going to do? He asked. I took a deep breath. Divorce her. His lips pressed into a tight line. Then, after a long moment, he nodded. Me too. And just like that, 2 marriages ended in a single night. We sat there for a long time, saying nothing. Then, finally, he let out a bitter chuckle. Guess we've both been played for fools. I smirked. Not anymore. Because now, they were the ones who had something to lose. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter, not happy, far from it. But for the first time in months, maybe even years, the weight of uncertainty was gone. I knew the truth now. There were no more excuses, no more doubts, no more wondering if I was imagining things. Diana and Valerie had made their choices. Now, it was time for me and my father to make ours. I sat across from my lawyer, staring at the paperwork in front of me. It all felt so surreal. Are you sure you want to move forward with this? My lawyer, Elliot, asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes. There was no saving my marriage. There was no fixing something that had been built on lies. Elliot nodded and pushed a pen toward me. Then sign here. I took the pen, my hand steady, and signed my name, and just like that, my marriage was officially over. Not legally, not yet. But emotionally? Mentally, Diana had stopped being my wife the moment she crawled into Valerie's bed. I was walking out of the lawyer's office when my phone buzzed. I sighed. Valerie. I almost ignored it, but then I thought, let's see what lie she's telling now. I answered, my voice cold. What do you want? She hesitated. Harry, we need to talk. I laughed. Talk? You mean like how you and Diana talked behind my back for a year? Please, she said softly. I made a mistake. No, Valerie, I cut her off. You made 1,000 mistakes. Over and over again. You lied to me. You lied to my father. And now, you expect me to sit here and listen to whatever excuse you've come up with? There was a long pause. Then, finally, she sighed. He's divorcing me, she admitted. I smirked. Good. She exhaled sharply. I never wanted this, Harry. I rolled my eyes. You never wanted to get caught. There's a difference. Silence. She knew I was right. Finally, her voice softened. I hope one day you can forgive me. I let out a humorless chuckle. You think I need to forgive you, Valerie? I don't. I don't owe you anything. You and Diana deserve each other. Then I hung up. I blocked her number, too, because Valerie wasn't my family anymore. I barely had time to put my phone back in my pocket before it rang again. Diana. I sighed. Of course. I answered. What? Harry, she said, her voice too sweet, too fake. Can we meet? I clenched my jaw. For what? She hesitated. I think we should talk. Face to face. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. Diana, I don't think there's anything left to say. Please, she said, her voice almost pleading now. Just give me a chance to explain. Explain? She had already explained. She had looked me in the eye and said, I never loved you. What else was there to hear? But a part of me, a small, angry part, wanted to see her one last time, not to fix things, but to end them properly. I let out a slow breath. Fine. 1 hour. My place. Then I hung up, because this time, I was the one in control, and Diana was about to find out exactly what that meant. I stood in my living room, arms crossed, waiting. Diana was late, of course she was. Even now, even when she had nothing left to hide, she was still playing games, but this time, I wasn't the fool waiting around for her anymore. The doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and opened the door, and there she was. Diana looked exactly the same, perfectly put together, flawless makeup, her hair styled as if she hadn't just blown up our entire marriage, but something in her eyes was different, not regret. Not guilt, just calculation. She gave me a small smile. Hi, Harry. I didn't move. What do you want? She sighed, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Typical Diana. I just thought we should talk, she said, glancing around like she half expected the house to be exactly the same as when she left. It wasn't that I had already started erasing her framed photos. Gone, her designer throw pillows. Tossed, the closet space she used to take over? Cleared out, she noticed. Wow, she muttered. Didn't waste any time, did you? I raised an eyebrow. What did you expect? That I'd sit around and cry over you? She shrugged, like she wasn't entirely against the idea, then she turned to me, arms crossed. Are you really divorcing me? I scoffed. You think I'd stay married to you after what you did? She tilted her head, studying me like I was the unreasonable one. You don't have to make this messy, Harry. We can work something out. I laughed. You want to negotiate? What, you think you're getting half of everything? She smirked. I was your wife. I shook my head. You were a fraud. The fake sweetness dropped from her face in an instant, her lips curled, her voice turning sharp. You think you're the victim, don't you? I stared at her, stunned by the pure arrogance. You lied to me for years, I said. You used me to cover up who you really were. And now you're mad because you got caught? Diana rolled her eyes. Oh, please, Harry. Don't act like you're some perfect husband. Our marriage was boring. I exhaled, shaking my head. Then you should have left. She smirked. Why would I? I had the best of both worlds. A husband to play house with and Valerie to give me what I actually wanted. That hit me like a punch to the gut. She didn't just cheat, she had used me, for comfort. For status. For security, and now that it was all crumbling around her, she was lashing out. I took a slow step closer, lowering my voice. You know what, Diana? I actually feel sorry for you. She scoffed. Oh, please, no, really, I continued. Because you don't have anyone left. My father is divorcing Valerie. I'm divorcing you. And Gregory Langston, I smirked, won't go near either of you after the scandal. Her face twisted. She hated that I was right. For the first time in her life, Diana was the one being left behind, and there wasn't a damn thing she could do about it. I grabbed the divorce papers from the coffee table and handed them to her. Sign them, I said. She hesitated. For a brief moment, I thought I saw something close to fear in her eyes, but then she took the pen, scrawled her name at the bottom, and tossed them back at me. Hope you enjoy being alone, Harry, she sneered. I smirked. Hope you enjoy being irrelevant, Diana. She stormed toward the door, pausing just before stepping outside. She turned back to me, like she wanted to have the last word, but there was nothing left to say. I shut the door in her face, and just like that, Diana was out of my life for good. The moment the door shut behind Diana, I felt it, relief, not anger. Not heartbreak. Just the realization that I was finally done with her. I looked at the signed divorce papers in my hands, exhaled slowly, and tossed them onto the table. It was over. Diana had spent years lying, using me, betraying me. And now, she had nothing left. I wasn't the fool who got played anymore. I was the man who walked away, and for the first time in a long time, I was free. The silence after Diana left was deafening. I stood there, staring at the door, half expecting her to come back, to knock, to try one last manipulation. But she didn't. She was gone, and this time, it was for good. I took a deep breath, rubbing a hand over my face. The house felt different now. It wasn't just an empty space, it was a place I could finally reclaim. No more pretending. No more walking on eggshells, wondering if my marriage was real or just a well-crafted lie. Diana had played her game, and she had lost. I was halfway through pouring myself a drink when my phone buzzed. Dad. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Hey, I said. There was a long pause before he spoke. She moved out. I closed my eyes. Valerie. Good, I muttered. She didn't deserve to stay. Another pause. Neither did Diana. I let out a bitter chuckle. Yeah, well, she just signed the papers. Dad exhaled. Guess we both married the wrong women. I sat down, rolling the glass between my fingers. At least we're fixing it now. Yeah. His voice was quieter now. I just can't believe I didn't see it. That she was capable of this. I knew exactly how he felt. Because I had felt the same way. You're not the only one, I admitted. I ignored the signs for years. Silence stretched between us, heavy and understanding, then, finally, Dad sighed. I don't know what's next for me, Harry. I took a slow sip of my drink, thinking about it. Me neither. And for the first time, that didn't scare me. That I ended the call, exhaling, then my phone buzzed again. A message. From Diana. That I almost deleted it without reading it, but my curiosity got the better of me. Diana, I hope you're happy now. That I stared at the screen, shaking my head. She still didn't get it. This wasn't about happiness, this was about finally being done with her. That I deleted the message, put my phone down, and took another sip of my drink. Diana was the past, and for the first time in a long time, I was ready for the future. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter. It wasn't happiness, not yet. But it was something close. A sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Diana was gone. For good. No more fake smiles. No more lies. No more nights wondering if my wife was who she pretended to be. I poured myself a coffee, staring out the window. The world kept moving, and so would I. My phone buzzed. Dad. I answered, expecting more talk about Valerie, but his voice was surprisingly steady. I filed for divorce this morning. I nodded to myself. Good. He let out a breath. Guess we're really doing this, huh? Yeah, I said. We are. For so long, we had both been trapped in lies. Now we were finally taking control. I checked my email later that afternoon and saw a notification from my lawyer, the subject line, divorce finalized. I stared at it for a moment, letting it sink in, then, without hesitation, I deleted it. No celebration. No anger, just closure. Diana was no longer my wife, she was just someone I used to know, and for the first time in a long time, I was ready to move on. The divorce was official. It was over. No more Diana. No more lies. No more second-guessing everything I thought I knew. I expected to feel empty. Instead, I felt free. For the first time in years, my life was mine again. I spent the day going through the house, removing every last trace of her clothes. Packed up and donated, her photos. Gone, her perfume that used to linger in the bedroom. Replaced with fresh air and silence. Each item I threw out was another weight lifted off my shoulders. By the time I was done, the house felt different, not like a place where my marriage had died, but like a place where I could start over. That evening, I got a call from Mark. Come out for a drink, he said. You need it. I hesitated for a second. The old me would have said no. Would have stayed home, stuck in my head, thinking about what went wrong. But I wasn't that guy anymore. Yeah, I said, grabbing my keys. Let's go. Because life wasn't waiting for me, and I wasn't waiting for it. I pulled up to the bar where Mark was waiting, feeling different. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying the weight of Diana's lies. I wasn't worrying about what she was doing, who she was with, or what else she was hiding. She was out of my life, and that meant I could finally start living again. Mark waved me over as soon as I walked in. Look who finally decided to stop moping. I smirked. I was never moping. He chuckled. Right. So the past few months of stress, rage, and drinking coffee alone in your house doesn't count? I rolled my eyes. Okay, maybe a little. He slid a beer in front of me. Then let's celebrate. To new beginnings. I hesitated for half a second before clinking my glass against his, because yeah, why not? The past was done, the future was mine, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of it. The bar was buzzing with life music playing, conversations overlapping, glasses clinking. It was the kind of noise I had avoided for months, too wrapped up in my own misery to even think about being out in the world again. But now, I was sitting at the bar with a cold drink in my hand, a weight off my chest, and a future that finally felt like mine. Mark leaned against the counter, smirking. So, how does it feel? I took a sip of my beer, exhaling slowly. Strange. He raised an eyebrow. Good strange or bad strange? I thought about it for a moment. Good, I admitted. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't tied to someone else's lies. I wasn't waking up every morning questioning whether my marriage was real or if my wife was out there betraying me again. Diana was gone, and that meant I could finally be me again. As the night went on, we drank, we laughed, we didn't talk about her. It was refreshing to not have her name hanging over every conversation, but just when I thought I was truly free, reality had one last test for me. I was halfway through my drink when Mark's expression shifted, his smirk faded, his eyes darted toward the entrance. I didn't even have to turn around. I knew, Diana. I took a slow breath and finally turned. There she was, standing near the door, scanning the crowd. She was alone. No Valerie. No fake smile. When her gaze landed on me, she froze for half a second before regaining her composure, and then, she walked straight toward me. Mark muttered under his breath, "You've got to be kidding me." I felt the same way. She stopped beside me, her arms crossed, her lips pressed together in what I assumed was her attempt at looking remorseful. "Harry," she said. I stared at her, waiting. She hesitated. "Can we talk?" Mark snorted. "Now you want to talk?" I held up a hand, stopping him before he could really let loose. I wanted to hear what she had to say, not because I cared, but because I was curious. "What is there to talk about, Diana?" I asked, my voice calm. She shifted uncomfortably. I don't want things to end like this." I laughed under my breath. "Like what? You cheating? You lying? You using me for years while sneaking around with Valerie?" Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand, Harry." Mark scoffed. "Oh, please. We understand just fine." Diana ignored him, her focus locked on me. "I made a mistake." I tilted my head. "Which one? Marrying me? Or getting caught?" She flinched. For the first time, I saw it, the realization in her eyes that I wasn't the same man she used to manipulate. Diana sighed, her confidence slipping. I don't want to be your enemy." I stared at her, my grip tightening around my drink. She still didn't get it. "You were never my enemy, Diana," I said slowly. "You were just a mistake." Her face fell, and just like that, I won, not because I hurt her but because I no longer cared. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something else, but she saw the truth in my eyes. There was nothing left to say. So, for the first time ever, Diana was the one who walked away, and as she disappeared into the crowd, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. I turned back to Mark. "Another round?" I asked. He grinned. "Hell yeah." And just like that, I moved on. Diana walked out of my life that night, for good. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more second chances. I watched her disappear into the crowd, but something was different this time. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pain. I just felt free. Mark clinked his beer against mine. That was satisfying to watch. I chuckled, shaking my head. Yeah. It was. I had spent so much time trapped in that marriage, trapped in her games. And now? She had no control over me anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling refreshed. No anxiety. No regrets, just a life that was finally mine again. I grabbed my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and finally did something I should have done long ago. I blocked Diana, her number, her emails, every way she could ever reach me again. No more lingering texts. No more late-night attempts to talk. She was nothing to me now. I stepped outside, inhaling the crisp morning air. It smelled different. Maybe it was the fact that I no longer carried the weight of a broken marriage. Maybe it was the fact that, for the first time in years, I didn't have to second-guess my own life. Or maybe it was just the beginning of something better. I didn't know exactly where I was going next, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to find out. And as I walked away from my past, I smiled. Because Diana was gone and I was finally free. It had been 6 months since Diana walked out of my life for good. 6 months since the lies, the betrayals, and the gut-wrenching realization that my entire marriage had been nothing more than a convenient cover-up for her. 6 months since I had to look my father in the eye and tell him that his wife had been cheating on him with my wife, and now, I was still standing. That I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. At first, moving on was hard. The memories of our life together didn't just disappear overnight. That I'd wake up expecting to hear Diana in the kitchen. I'd find myself instinctively reaching for my phone to text her about something only to remember she was gone. For a while, the bitterness lingered, but the more I rebuilt my life, the more I realized I didn't need her. Hell, I had never really needed her. I had just convinced myself that I did, and now, I was finally living for myself. One evening, Dad and I sat outside on his back porch, sipping whiskey as the sun set. "You ever regret it?" he asked, swirling his glass. That I knew what he meant. "Leaving them?" I asked. "Yeah." I leaned back in my chair, staring up at the sky. "Not for a second." He nodded slowly, taking a sip. "Me neither. We had both escaped, and though the scars were there, the damage done, we had survived." One evening, Mark dragged me out for dinner, claiming I needed to stop acting like a retired man at 35. "You need to start dating again," he insisted. "You can't let Diana ruin women for you." I rolled my eyes. "I don't need to date to prove anything." "Who said anything about proving something?" He smirked. "You just need a night of fun. No commitments, no expectations. Just a fresh start." I wasn't sure I was ready. But then I realized I wasn't afraid of it either. So I agreed, nothing serious. Just one dinner, one drink. Something normal, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying Diana's betrayal like a weight on my shoulders. For the first time, the thought of being with someone new didn't feel like baggage. It felt like a new chapter, and for the first time, I was looking forward to it. There was a time when I thought my marriage defined me, that being a husband, a provider, a partner was my entire identity. But now, I knew the truth. That I was never just Diana's husband. That I was always Harry, and for the first time in years, I was living for me. And no more lies. No more pretending. No more living in someone else's shadow. That I didn't know what the future held, and that was the best part, because for the first time in my life it was truly mine.